Welcome to The Big Break Show, a podcast where we discuss short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, life, mindset, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Rafa Loza and Jesse Vasquez.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode. We are here with my co-host, Mr. Vasquez the Man, Jesse. What's up, brother?
Vasquez the Man, Jesse Vaseline. That's what they used to call me in high school. I think people were making fun of me, right?
Wait. What was it that you were part of? The punk skater crew or something? What did you say it was called?
Yeah.
Fuck skaters or something?
FSH. You guys are going to have to listen to episode 41 to hear that whole story. But yeah, we're actually on episode 42 and we're back to the short-term rental space. And today, you guys, we are talking to Mr. Norm Hamilton, who's been in the short-term rental space for, Rafa, like since 2016. So he's been in it for a while. He's over in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and in Houston and Texas. And he's built a portfolio of over 25 properties, I believe, with arbitrage and also property management. So this dude's doing multiple different levels when it comes to the short-term rental space. So we're definitely excited to talk to him. What's your thoughts, Rafa?
Yeah, I was happy to bring him on because I've known him for a while, and he started dropping really good content on Instagram and very knowledgeable about the space, and he knows how to handle situations really well. So I was like, hey, we got to have him on because I know he can bring value to the listeners who are trying to learn short-term rentals, which is a majority of our audience. So I'm excited for him to be here. I want everybody to kind of take some serious notes because he does go into some good details here, and go take action after this episode.
Definitely, man. Absolutely right. And you know what, you guys, since you're all here listening right now, if you could just do us a huge solid and take maybe like, did I just say take a huge solid or do us a huge solid?
Do us a huge solid. No, you're
do
good.
it. I just want to make sure I wasn't talking to Rafa in the audience. You guys just like and give us a 5-star rating so we can get on the algorithm. We're getting a lot more views right now and everybody's sharing this, which we really appreciate it. But all it takes is like literally 7 seconds to click on the app right now and give us a 5-star review. We don't have any ads yet running, and we do this with the pleasure of actually giving you guys some information. So we're just asking you guys to just give us a 5-star rating, like and subscribe, follow us on the YouTube, all that other good stuff. I sound like a sales rep right now. Damn it.
We do it because we love you guys, and we hope you guys love us back.
That is true.
Without further ado, enjoy the episode. So Norman, man, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate you coming on the show. I want you to tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what you have going on right now.
Thanks for having me on, guys. So my name is Norman Hamilton. I've been hosting since 2016. I've been doing rental arbitrage via corporate housing. I've also dabbled in the management space a bit with short-term rentals. Currently managing about 30 units, give or take. Supply changes depending on contracts, market, and whatnot. But I've been in the space since 2016. I want to say we officially incorporated in 2018. That's when we got our first unit in 2017. Basically via cold calling, to be completely honest with you. We started in New Jersey, but we ended up moving to Texas because me and my partner at the time, we both had day jobs, and our day jobs relocated us to Houston and Dallas, respectively. And so we basically cold called as many people as we could in those different cities. And we found our first like hot lead in Dallas, ended up closing on that unit in Dallas. And I want to say 2017, officially incorporated in 2018. And since then, like, we've kind of just been through the ringer. Like, I've experienced like most problems that rental arbitrage people have experienced, from dealing with HOAs to dealing with different types of property managers to dealing with property management companies changing. I'd probably say I've experienced like 95% of the problems that most operators have experienced in the space. And like some of those have definitely slowed us down, but also like being able to overcome them put us in a position to be where we are now. So I mean, that's more or less my story, to keep it short, and sticking to it.
So there's a lot of stuff that you said that I want to kind of like unwrap a little bit, right? Because 2016 is a long time. I didn't even know you were in it this long. What made you get into arbitrage, number one, or into short-term rentals?
I was working in investment banking at the time, and I just I was a smart guy. Like, I studied computer science, software developer. I was working in investment banking as an intern, software development intern and credit risk at one of like the big investment banks in New York City. And at the time, I was living in Harlem, and I really wasn't too happy with what I was doing, even though I was making a lot of money, to be completely honest. And so, like, I was always looking for different things to explore. And entrepreneurship just happened to be one of those things. And I knew that it was a possible lane for me when I saw one of my like mentors doing it. Like he was only a couple years older than me, but he was doing specifically, he was doing short-term rentals in 2000. He had to be doing it in like late 2015. That's when he started his company. And I started doing investment banking or working in investment banking in 2016. And then what ended up happening was I ended up going back to the West Coast because I have family in the West Coast in Seattle. I ended up going back to Seattle before they banned it, before like, the regulations and whatnot for short-term rentals changed out there. And I ended up reconnecting with him, and he kind of sparked my like entrepreneurship spirit. I kind of always knew that I didn't want to be working in corporate America, investment banking, all that for an extremely long time. So I connected with him, and he kind of showed me what he was doing with short-term rentals. He showed me like, how it worked, and he showed me like, he was his own man. He has his own business. He left his job at Boeing. I used to work at Boeing as well. And so, he sent me down a rabbit hole effectively, right? So I've read all the books that are popular now. So, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon, the list goes on. I've read all those books, and I was like, okay, great. Like, I think I have a good idea of what I want to do or what I don't want to do, which is, work a 9 to 5. So I ended up going back to New Jersey and starting our business in New Jersey with my colleague, friend I went to school with, because he also worked at Boeing too. And we had no experience. We had effectively no experience in 2016, right? There wasn't the Big Break podcast yet. There wasn't there weren't all these popping podcasts like the Live Let Thrives, like you guys. And so like we had no base. Like there was not really anything that like we didn't know what to do, basically, to be completely honest. Like we didn't know what to do in 2016. And I was still in school at the time. So what ended up happening was we kind of just gave up. We kind of just gave up in 2016. Fast forward, I graduate college, my partner graduates college, and we're like, look, man, we're going to give this thing one more shot. And then we end up moving out to Houston and Dallas. Our jobs move us. So I'm not in investment banking anymore. I got out of investment banking, and I got into consulting. And that's when I got moved out to Texas. And so we really just grinded it out, to be completely honest. Like by that time I had been working, and so I had a decent amount of work experience, and I knew how to like research. So, I researched sales techniques, I researched all that stuff, built leads list, and just literally just grinded it out, cold calling, trying to figure out, okay, what was the best way to pitch what we're trying to do to these people. And so eventually we found a guy who was an engineer, ironically, and he wanted to work with us, or rather like what enticed him to work with us was the fact that we were also engineers. My partner at the time was an EIT. And so that was a connection right there. And he had gotten tired of renting out to tenants and stuff like that. And so like he was willing to experiment. And also like he had a problem. He had a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo. And the 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo, the rent was really high for it. And the HOA fee was even higher. So nobody at the time wanted to pay what he had to charge to make money, but we were willing to pay that. So because we were willing to pay that, he leased to our LLC. We signed an addendum, and things were pretty much good to go with that. And so we're making good money off of that. And so that was our very first deal from graduating college, getting started, all the way to literally getting my first deal.
Holy smokes, Norman, that's a bunch of shit you just said.
Yeah, my bad.
I mean, shit in a good way. But so actually, I have a question for you, because I get asked this question, Ralph. I'm sure you do too. Like, what were you side hustling this, or were you like, because you were in between a bunch of different jobs? So like, did you have credit cards? Like Ralph has started with credit cards, and a lot of people start that way. Did you guys was this side hustle, or was this just like, I just left my job and now I'm going to do this? Like, what was that like? And then we'll kind of dive into the whole, because I want to talk about the leads part, because a lot of people are curious about that too.
I bootstrapped with my own money. So I worked at Goldman Sachs. So I had money saved up from my internship at Goldman. And then I worked at Accenture as a consultant. And I saved up money from Accenture as well. And me and my partner at the time, we bootstrapped it. So we saved up 10 grand. We saved up 10 grand. We only used about like 6 or 7 at the time, back when furniture was cheap and smart locks were cheap. To furnish the unit, to pay for the security deposit, etc. And I mean, we did it. I mean, we did it the cheapest way possible, dude. I mean, we went on like Craigslist, OfferUp, Let Go, Facebook Marketplace, and like that's how we stayed within our 6 to 7 grand budget to get the unit.
I love that.
Got it. Yeah, awesome. That's kind of how everybody does it. So you guys started off with 10 grand. That was your all in amount. And I'm assuming you guys were arbitraging, right? You guys were going after arbitrage
Yeah.
model. Okay, cool. So
Yeah, it was arbitrage.
So let's talk about the lead stuff, because Rafa's like a master with and I'll let you guys kind of talk about this because I'm not the arbitrage like king like Rafa is. But what does that look like? Because I get asked this question too, and I'm like, obviously, I have a couple units that I arbitrage. When you talk about leads, like for people that are starting off right now, what does that even mean? So like usually people will ask, like, how do I talk to a landlord? How do I do this? How do I do that? We've explained it. Rafa's explained it literally hundreds of times. So you go on his Instagram, he has like all these things about how to do it. But everybody does things kind of in their own way, in their own kind of style. So like, what was your pitch? What was that conversation? What was that whole thing like? And what was your first deal? You can kind of break that down.
So pitch, conversation, all that. So let's start with leads. I approach it from a technical perspective because my background when I was in consulting, I did a lot of Salesforce stuff, and Salesforce specifically to Sales Cloud and Salesforce it provides you like a set of tools to optimize your sales process from leads to accounts and all that. So my background's not even in sales. My background's in technology. So for me, like when I was working in my day job, I always saw that the clients that we were working with would have tons of leads in a database. And so my mind was telling me, okay, from a data perspective or a software perspective, leads they're just information their information or their records of information that are more or less tied to individuals that you could potentially do business with. So with that being said, I knew my mindset going into this was like, okay, I need to find as many bits of information as possible on people that I could potentially do business with. And then from there, I asked myself logical questions like, well, who can I do business with realistically in this space? Like, who has a problem that I can solve? Because for me, it was kind of like, if I find somebody if I could get a whole bunch of information, but if these people don't necessarily have a problem that they're aware of, it's going to be hard for me to close on them. So for me, it was like, okay, I need to find people who have a problem that I can solve. So that's how I figured out, okay, well, I'm trying to get apartments. We're trying to rent out apartments midterm for the most part. So logically, people on apartments.com, people on Zillow, people on Craigslist, like if you're especially on Craigslist, you're probably desperate. People on those websites have a problem. They have an empty space and they need to get their place rented out. So for me, I couldn't afford a Salesforce software. So I just went on these websites, I just data mined everything, and I specifically created filters that would get me the properties that I was interested in. So I use that information hand in hand with AirDNA data to have a list of leads that I know if I were able to convert this into an account, or basically if I were able to get this person to sign an addendum with me or work with me, I would be able to make money. I would be able to make money from them. So the first thing when it comes to leads is like, okay, figuring out who could potentially work with you. Second of all, like pre-qualifying them before you even like speak to them on the phone by looking at the numbers, the potential deal flow that you could get from that lead or accounts, like to put it in technical terms. And then looking at that list and then sorting that list out based off of, okay, what is the most profitable deal? And then what's the least profitable deal? And then only focusing on the deals that have the highest rate of like conversion. So like with that being said, now that I have my list of leads, the next thing that I talk about now is like, okay, I got the leads, I got the data, I've qualified this data. I'm certain that like, okay, this is one of these people will at least convert. So I probably make like a list of 100. I sort them from most profitable to least profitable. Anything that would lose me money, a crazy amount of money, I'd get rid of it. Now, okay, cool. I got to cold call these people. And when we started, it was like we were trying everything. I'd say, hey, my name is Norman Hamilton. I'm currently in. I basically do it like how I did my elevator pitch when I was trying to get internships in corporate America. Like that's kind of how like I transferred my experience over to this space, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, like the elevator pitches, you tell them who you are, you tell them what you're about, and you tell them what you're trying to do and what you're looking for. And if they're gonna bite, they're gonna bite. So for me, it was like, hey, it started from, hey, my name's Norm Hamilton. I own a corporate housing company. My background is in software engineering. I also am a consultant. I see that you guys have X amount of properties available on this website. Do you guys accept corporate housing? And they'd be like, yes, right? And then the next thing for me would be, can I get an in-person meet? Can I get an in-person meeting with this person? Because I think a lot of people are extremely abrasive on the phone. So at the time, my thought process was like, if they could see me in person and see that like I'm a well put together person, like I'm not out here trying to scam people or whatever, then like they're more than likely going to say yes. And if I can present them with a deal, if I can present them with an offer that they can't refuse for the most part, like they're at least going to entertain the idea. So what ended up happening was my partner actually met the guy in person, and basically they met in person, and that's how he found out that my partner was an engineer. So they met in person. They spoke more about the business. They learned about the business. The guy knew we were new into business. Like we didn't hide that, but they knew that we were new. He knew that we were new into business. We were very upfront with that, and we told them what we wanted to do in person after we pre-qualified them. They spoke and they came to an agreement. And this was our very first deal. And I would never do this now, but what ended up happening was after we pitched, after we met in person and discussed the deal and discussed how it would work, we have our clients coming in from various websites. Airbnb was just one of them. Because we even at the time were using, I don't remember the name of the web, Furnish Finder. Yeah, Furnish Finder. We're using Furnish Finder as well back when the rents were lower and that model could work. So once he understood, like, okay, this is how our business works and how we get our leads. And we did this, like, you can do this through a PowerPoint presentation too. Like that's, if there's one thing I learned from corporate America, it's like PowerPoint presentations, decks, they actually work. Like they're actually useful. So, and most people in this space, like, especially like when you're talking like residential, like they're not used to that kind of stuff. So when you come in with that kind of stuff, PowerPoint presentation deck, suited up, like you're ready to go, like you know what you're talking about, like your closing rate goes up because you're already you're setting yourself apart from the crowd. So like for in corporate, like that was normal for us, but apparently coming into this space at the time, that wasn't normal. So that really helped us close that really helped us close. But to go to go into that a little bit deeper, we pitched to him our model via PowerPoint deck. This is what we do. These are the websites we market on, and this is how we make sure that no nonsense is happening inside of your listing. And he was essentially cool with it. He signed a lease with us. Everything was good to go. But because it was our first lease, we had to personally guarantee it. So we had to put skin in the game to make sure that, like, if something happens, like we still owe the guy. And it was fair enough. We had decent paying jobs. Like I'm like, okay, whatever. Like if we split it up between me and my partner, it's only a couple hundred a month each. So and I'm sure like we still had the option to buy our way out the lease if all else fails. So that was my mindset going into it. That was more or less our pitch. I pitched myself as a professional who had a corporate housing company, but we were very upfront about like the age of our company. That's not something you can hide. And we had to personally guarantee the lease after meeting the guy in person and basically showing him that we were serious about what we're doing. And he signed with us, and the rest is more or less history. And like there's some other issues that we encountered during the lease that like I'd be more than happy to go into. I'm extremely transparent with a lot of that stuff. Did that answer the question? Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, you did. You went into a lot of detail, and I'm glad you did, because it's funny. I've never heard anybody structured in such a way that you do it. We do a lot of things similar. Like there's a lot of similarities, right? You solve people's problems. You find what their main pain point is over what they're actually worried about, right? For example, in my case, people are more worried about filling vacancy because I go after like rehab projects. I go after like mom and pop owners that have like a picket sign that says, hey, for rent, and they've been vacant for a month or two. They don't care. They care more about filling their vacancy than me using it as a short-term rental. Like their pain point isn't the fact that it's going to be a short-term rental. It's the fact that it's been vacant for so long and they don't want to lose money on it. But I love how you structured it, because the way you said it was like, you just structured it in a very different way. We do a lot of things the same. The first initial phone call is not to give any information. It's to present yourself as a professional person, but make the appointment in person so they see how well off you are. Because when you pitch on the phone and you go on this 20-minute rant, they're going to be like, this guy's crazy. No thanks. And they'll hang up on you, right? But when you do that first initial phone call to make that appointment and they show up and you're professional about it and you talk about it and you actually explain what you do in detail, they're going to want to work with you. I've never heard anybody do a PowerPoint, which I love. I love that you're saying you did a PowerPoint. I've never tried it. I've never even like done it before.
I do
I'm terrible with it. Yeah, it's funny. And so like, I think it's awesome. I legit, like, that's cool. You're the first person I hear to say that, because I've never actually done it. I just go in and I'm just good at talking sometimes. So I can explain things very, very well in detail and get their mind out of whatever they're fearing, right? Like going back to your marketing thing, like where well, we use Airbnb as a marketing platform, but their fear is Airbnb and parties. But once I get them out of that fear mindset, they're more inclined to work with me because now they understand how we actually manage things. But when you do it on a PowerPoint, now
Yes.
you have a visual. There's an actual visual, and it puts certain people are visual learners, and it puts a different perspective in their mind where they go, I see that. So I love that you did.
You know what? This is an old school sales tactic. Like the first 7 seconds of meeting people, that's going to give them a solid impression if they're going to like you or not. And there's this study that was done at University of Pennsylvania, is they actually said 3 seconds will determine if somebody's going to buy something with you or do business with you. And the other 4 seconds afterward, like that's if they're going to like actually listen to you. So if you're pitching to somebody on the phone, those first 7 seconds are going to be incredibly important. Just like Rafa said, you want to get an in-person meeting. That's the whole goal. Is you want to sit face to face with somebody, whether that's Zoom or that's in person. But those 7 seconds when you're making a call are going to be like literally. There's like studies that have been done about this, and you can go on Google and look this stuff up and research it. 7 seconds to determine if somebody's going to like you or not. That's it.
Right. I agree.
There's a talking about the time frame, right? We're such in a fast-paced world now. I was reading this book. Gosh darn it, I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, it's about social media, and you have 3 seconds to capture attention on social media to see if people will like you or not, because it's getting so much faster now, right? Same concept. When you go and meet someone in person, you got to capture their attention about what you're going to do. Otherwise, it's just another number on their day and appointments or whatever it is, and they're not going to care. Norman, there's something I want to touch on though, because when you started this, going back to how, again, there was nobody educating on it, nobody really teaching on it. Like, how did you guys figure out to do an addendum on your lease and how to properly structure a lease? Like, where did that come from? How did you come up with that? Did you come up on your own? Did somebody say, hey, this is what we need? Did you just figure it out? Like, can you touch on that a little bit?
So leases at the time in 2016 didn't have any clauses outlawing like advertising, on not outlawing, but leases in 2016, 17, they didn't have that verbiage that said that you couldn't like list on like you couldn't advertise on different websites. So as I started like moving up in the game and started like beating more and more people who were more seasoned than me, it became apparent that that was something that we needed in order to protect our business. So yeah, so I mean, long story short, as I became more seasoned and met more people who are and networked my way through the industry, met people with like 50 units, like 60 units, 100 units. It was something, you learn more and more about business, and your network, especially people who are ahead of you, will put you on game, and they put me on game. So friends, mentors are like, hey, you need to do this, basically.
Absolutely. I love that, because even though, like me, I've been in the game for so long too, right? I've been in it since 2017, and I know, like we both know the ins and outs of short-term rentals. Like there's nothing that I haven't been through, right? And I recently just went through my very first squatter issue, right? Like I posted all over social media about it, and I'd never done it before. It's crazy because even now when I go to like where some of my friends speak at these events about short-term rentals, I love going to them regardless of whether I'm going to learn something or not, because there might be someone else that can teach you something new, even though you've been in the game for so long. There's always different ways and different perspectives and different points that people make that you can either implement yourself, you can learn from, you can help others pick up, that make things easier for you, right? Because for me, for like automation and scaling, like I had no idea how to do that, right? I had to get a mentor to teach me how to scale, automate processes, systems, all of that. When I learned that, dude, I mean, the rest is history. Like, we're at what, 64 units now. We're about to add another 5, getting this hotel going. And it's all plug and play now because of the way you grow with people around you, being around those mentors, those relationships, all of that stuff. So what do you got going on right now then? I want to transition a little bit from how you started to what you have going on right now. Like, what are you managing? What do you got working on? Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm doing a massive restructuring of our business to make us way more lean than we like previously have been. So as you know, we started in Dallas, but then we eventually scaled out to Houston. And to be honest, it was definitely a blessing. It was a blessing and a curse at the same time, because moving to Houston made me extremely good at it made me extremely good at like I want to say like revenue management, like pricing, screening guests and things like that. But I'd probably say that I would definitely have more units than I have now had I just stayed in Dallas, because the biggest thing I learned in Houston was that if you're doing good in your current market, is there really a need to go to other markets? By which I mean, like, we got our first unit in Dallas. Realistically, we probably should have just stayed in Dallas. We would have had our cleaning costs would have probably had been lower. our operating expenses definitely would have been lower. Like expenses across the board, this, like expenses across the board are lower when when you're able to take advantage of benefits like centralization. Like when you have a whole bunch of units in different markets and there's no way to tie those economies of scale together, you're spending an absurd amount of money. You're just spending an absurd amount of money, and you're in my opinion, you're slowing your own growth. So what we're doing is we're doing a massive restructuring. And so like while my unit count hasn't really grown, I mean, I've essentially played musical chairs with my units to make the economics work out. So I mean, we've pretty much closed shop in most of Houston, and we're only keeping like our absolute best units with the top tier relationships. So really only A-class units in Houston that I'm like actually friends with the property managers. Like we go out for dinner, we're going out for drinks, stuff like that. Where like the biz dev is on point. And anything else like we've gotten rid of. So I've done moves from Houston to Dallas. I've done moves from Houston to like to Austin to more profitable markets. So the unit count hasn't changed, but the economics are better. The profit margins are better because we move to better markets, and that's solved tons of problems that we've had when it comes to capacity of team members. Why does that solve those problems? It solved those problems because we weren't making a lot of money in some of our like units in Houston, especially some of like our B class kind of properties, those older kind of apartments. And so getting rid of those apartments and moving to a different, a higher performing market has increased our margins, but it's also decreased the amount of work that our virtual assistants have had to do because the clientele in the market is better and the average length of stay in the markets that we've moved to is longer. So I've essentially been able to make my team more lean and also free up their time so that they can do more internal operations stuff on top of like the customer service stuff. So ideally what I'm trying to do, or what my goal is, be as centralized as possible and dominate a market essentially. And then once I'm comfortable with the level of expansion I have in another market, then move over to another market, build solid teams, and really just focus solely on biz dev and figuring out ways to diversify my bookings off of a lot of the OTAs and get more traditional like corporate housing contracts to protect my business, increase the margins, and decrease the amount of time my team has to deal with like incidents and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know what? I love you bring that up because I always see like on social media, people will post their $7,000, $10,000 bookings. And I'm sitting there thinking like, yeah, dude, but you only get like a 15% margin in here. And especially if you own the property or arbitraging, like those extra, 5% over a 12 month of time, like does a huge amount to a small business. So, when people post those numbers and stuff, I always look at them just like, whatever. And I'm somebody that did that in the past, but
I was like, Jesse, you do that all the time, bro. I was like,
not all the time.
right now.
I haven't done it in a while. Because I realized like people are posting these and people that are brand new starting off like, yeah, cool, I got paid. This is my mortgage. But dude, what's your, at the end of the day, like how much money are you actually bringing home? What is your operational cost? What is your runner's cost? What does that actually show me your balance books or your P&L. I don't, the numbers of that don't matter.
I agree with that. And for people listening to this, I will say that the most important thing that you need to do as somebody who's in this space, especially if you're new, is at the end of every single month, not only do you need to look at P&Ls, but you need to have reports. You need to have profit and loss and profit margin reports on a per unit basis for every single unit, because the most common question that people ask me is, how do I know when it's time to scale? And I always tell them your numbers will tell you when it's time to scale. Like if you have a whole bunch of units on 5-10% margin, you can't scale off of that, man. That's just my opinion.
It's impossible.
I literally just dropped a YouTube video about this, about having a bookkeeper so you can go over your books so you know where you're at. You get these dudes that are like, oh, I have 90 units and each unit's making like $200-$300 in profit. And I'm like, bro, I have like 30 units, but they're doing $1,500 in profit, right? And like I've done the mistake where I've grown so fast where I add a bunch of units and then I realize, okay, these units are not making what I need them to make. And we start either downscaling or we try to figure ways to generate that profit either by cutting costs or by finding different ways to get those bookings, right? And it's the same thing. If you don't know what you're looking at the end of the month and you have no idea what your units are making you and you think it's all about a numbers game to scale and grow and add, yeah, you're going to make more money, but the headaches are not going to be worth it, right? The least amount at the more value is what's about.
Yeah, but you know what, too, Rafa, is a lot of times, and I did this too up until a while ago. Is when you start getting a bunch of units. Norman, you might have done this the right way. When you start getting a bunch of units, you start spending money on shit like different units, and you don't even know. Like you might get an Amazon bundle, and you don't know if that's for property A or property B or property C. And I just came across a company called Divvy. Have you guys heard of Divvy credit cards? So
I'm
Divvy
not.
allows you haven't. So Divvy, they'll give you. And anybody listening to this right now, I really suggest you. They're really open to giving people credit cards. Divvy has a system inside of them where you can like literally allocate whatever you spend money on. It's almost like QuickBooks, but for a credit card. So I have, right now I have 15 properties that we're running. And if I spend money on Blackburn, let's say it's a property that I have, and I use that Divvy card, it'll automatically go to that specific thing. And I can put a credit card. It'll actually allow you to generate credit cards, numbers right over the internet, like right away. Like if I got a new listing today, I can generate a new listing. We're only going to use that number for that property. So everything that's used, like literally, you could just pull up your credit card information at the end of the month. Everything's there already categorized for you because every card is already put together from every
Okay,
single
so
thing.
Yeah, essentially what it does is you can use a different credit card per property to keep your expenses.
But it's only one account. You're not using different credit cards. So it's like,
That's what I'm saying. It's different cards,
Right.
one account. Yeah.
it makes the reporting easier because you're creating virtual credit cards for each property. So when you're at the end of the month and you need to create reports, you can look at the credit cards for each unit, and then you can literally copy and paste the numbers into a spreadsheet.
yeah, and it already connects to QuickBooks. So it's like everything's there. It's like, say I have a person that does, it's like a runner or that basically is in charge of the cleaning crews. So I give her a credit card and I can set my limits on her. So if she needs to go buy stuff at like, Target or Costco or whatever, it'll show me instantly the second she buys it, what's it for. And then she will go on there and actually allocate like what property everything's for. So I'm going to I don't know if you guys could see this or not, but this is just like, it'll kind of break down like real quick, like who's doing what their numbers are. And every single one of your properties, it's been a game changer for me. So like anybody listening to this right now, go watch a Divvy promotion like on YouTube or something like that. If you have multiple units, it's going to change your life as far as like having to use different credit cards. It just makes things so much easier. And I think for me and you as a big operator and Rafa too, like you have so many different credit cards that you guys are using. And I know that everybody here has a bunch of cards. And the thing I love about it is that it automatically like, it's so simple to just to export and put things in there and everything's allocated to itself already. So yeah, it's been a game changer. And like, say if we want to do design, like say we're designing a property, I can give the designer a budget already of like 30 grand. And then that card, I just automatically generate a card for her. She can use that card. It's automatically going to our design budget. So like, I don't have to keep sending funds to her or give her a credit card. Like everything's there already. You know what I mean? So it's amazing, man.
I thought about using it, Jesse. I might actually use it to open a unit. Yeah.
Yeah, I sound like a Divvy rep right now. Divvy, if you're listening to this, you guys better hire me.
They gotta like sponsor us now. You just
Sponsor
give a 10-minute pitch on Divvy.
Get an affiliate link.
No joke.
I know. No, they're a good company. I swear.
Yeah. Hey, so Norman, tell me, how many units are you managing right now? And then what's your like future plans? I want to transition to your future plans. Now we talked about how you started, what you're currently doing. Let's talk about your future plans.
We've got about 30 now, mix of arbitrage and management. As far as future plans go, I want to get to 100. The goal is to get to 100. Completely midterm rental. So that's not going to be strictly like Airbnb. We're going to have to use like numerous websites and numerous like marketing and lead generation tactics to be able to like satisfy that demand, especially for midterm. And I want to be as efficient as possible. With what we've achieved now, we're not really doing well. I'll say this: I'm not really working in the business that much with what we've achieved now. I want to say maybe I'm working a couple hours a day, and I choose to work a couple hours a day. And that's really more just, hey, I'm talking to my VAs. I'm just making sure that everything's good. I'm just doing wellness checks on people. I mean, I haven't spoken, to be honest, like I personally haven't spoken to a guest in months. Like, not that I don't want to, but I have a team for that. So, I mean, I personally haven't had to do that in months, and the team's been doing a really good job. The goal is to get to 100. And I definitely want to explore some other opportunities within the space when I get to 100, and we have a solid team for that. So, a lot of people might say, oh, well, what are midterm rentals? For me, midterm rentals are anything that is, it's 6+ days for me. I know some people, the traditional definition is 30 days, but I'm going based off of the type of traveler. And what I've noticed is the type of person, at least in the markets that I'm in, that is coming for 6 days is usually the same type of person who would stay for 30 days. And in a lot of situations, I've had people stay for a week and they've extended for a month because they like the place and whatever job or whatever work that they have has like given them a full contract or extended the contract. When I was working at Accenture, I was flying. I was working between on one of my clients. I was flying between Houston and LA for work, and so I just want to let people know there are people who like do travel for business for like 5 days at a time or 6 days at a time. It's not just 30 days. And I know this even more because when we first started, like yeah, we tried the 1 night stay, the 2 night stay, the 3 night stay. It's just too many incidents. You know, even for my orphan days, like there's just way too many incidents. You can create systems around it. Like you can collect, you can do security deposit, damage deposit, whatever word you want to use to get around the terms of service. You can do that. And for us, it was kind of just like I looked at my team. I'm like, yo, like I don't need I don't need the team just constantly being stressed out over a guy who's paying $40 a night for 2 nights. So for us, I made the decision. I'm like, we are going to prioritize like 5 night bookings, 6 night bookings, because the incident rate for that in the cities that I'm in is drastically lower, and the clientele, it's night and day. It's way better. I mean, we've got people who don't reach out to us for days. I think our biggest issue is now like we have to reach out to them to make sure they're okay.
Yeah, and that's the difference between midterm and short term, Norman. I just talked about that today. Like, there's a totally different type of guest. You said it. I haven't noticed the 6 day stuff, but you're in more of a metro area. I do have a place in Houston though that does extremely well as short term. But if you're scaling like that, you need to get contracts, man. Like that's the only way to do it is to scale big like that. You know, that's it. You know.
It's funny that you say that too, though, Norman, because I talk about me doing short-term rentals all the time, but my average stay is 14 days across all my units.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we by your terms, I'm technically a midterm rental too, right? Because all my people stay because they're all one-bedroom apartments, and I take over the small 8 unit, 20 unit buildings, and my average is very rarely do I get anything under 7 days now. It's usually about 10 to 14 days. 14 days, I actually last time I checked was my average of staying.
Yeah, when you get those kind of stays, like you're not dealing in most scenarios, you're not dealing with like people who are here to party. They're usually here for family. They're here for work, family, work, relocation, like school. Like I've had somebody stay with us for 60 days because like she's literally on a mission. Like she was in school studying I think like philosophy or something like that, and like like she was literally on a religious mission at the same time. Like you don't get like, and she stayed for a week and then like she extended, so like the second like I started realizing that like most of my, it's like the 80-20 kind of thing. When I was doing short term, like 80% of my problems were coming from that. When I switched to midterm, most of the problems went away.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'd be talking Jesse's alley right now. Yeah.
I've been talking about this for a long time. Everybody's like, whatever. Now it's like it's the NFT of the renting properties. It's like became this like huge thing, like literally overnight. Yeah. It's freaking crazy. Like everybody's talking about doing it and putting terms to it. Like I still think midterm is 30 days or more. But I mean, everybody's going to have their own terms on what it is, and anything that's more than 2-3 nights, like, dude, those people in Houston, we have people partying all the freaking time because we got a pool and stuff at our place. And, dude, it's hard to get because they have good reviews and they're coming in with like 7-8 good reviews and then throwing a big fat ass rager party. And then we have to close it down and get the cops involved. And Houston's been a rough market. Although the place that we have there does extremely well.
I agree 100%. I mean, I tell people about Houston all the time. Like when I moved out of Houston, most of my problems went away. Even when we were profitable in Houston, you screen ridiculously hard. Like,
yeah.
Like I think over time, like I should show y'all our house rules agreement. I think at this point, it's like 3 pages long, just because every single time we encounter an issue that wasn't accounted for, we got to go and update policy.
Yep.
And we tell people hey, like we're not accepting the reservation until you've confirmed that you've read this. And for us, like it's not even like my background's in software. Like we have people e-sign the agreements. We have the PMS. We have the PMS send a link to a form. They fill out the form. Once they fill out the form, an automation happens where they're emailed the house rules agreement. They sign the house rules agreement, and then boom, like they're good to go. And if I really wanted to, I could tie that to the check-in instructions, but we don't. But if I wanted to go that far with my units in Houston, like I really could.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I did to reduce like our incident rates. But I mean, Jesse, I'm not like I've been in that market for 5 years. Like
Yeah.
it ain't easy.
Rough.
It ain't easy. The rents are going up, and if you're in the wrong area of Houston, you're not gonna make money. Like Houston is weird in the sense of that like it's a very huge city, but because like it has the worst traffic in Texas, and so like in Houston, you have to proximity is the most important thing in Houston. Like if you're not close to something that people always want to go to, so I'll put it like this: if there's a whole bunch of people in an area in Houston, and you're not the closest to like the attraction point, then like you literally are losing. We're talking like thousands of dollars per year in reservations. Now, if you're in an area in Houston where there is demand and there's not a lot of people, then like those are those pockets where you can make money. And I mean, you pull it up on AirDNA, you look at all the zip codes. I mean, there's zip codes in Houston that have more listings than like other than cities in America, than like mid-tier cities in America, like zip
Yeah.
codes. So I mean, like if you pick the wrong part of that city, I mean, I would tell them like, look, man, just transfer out that lease.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree, man. It's in the one of the things that I really love about Houston, though, and it was the first city that actually had this happen in, is that people will book out like 6 months in advance. Like they're booking out like now in next year, in March and April, and you're probably seeing that if you have units out
How
there
big is
too.
the place?
It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath that has a little nook in there, so it's kind of like a 4-bedroom. And
Mhm.
it's like it's right centered between like the park, the football stadium, and like a lot of the hospitals. It's on the south side of Houston, I believe. Let me look.
Okay, so it's in the Met Center.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. It's right low, but there's also a shit ton of properties there too. Like a lot of them.
Yeah, I think in my opinion the Med Center is very price competitive, but for midterms, those people usually, especially if they're for the hospital, those people will usually extend. They usually keep extending from what I've seen. I got a guy who texted me today. He wants to extend until next year as well. So
Wow.
I do see that. We actually, I've got two guys. I've got one guy in the Woodlands. They want to extend until next year. And I'm talking to the PM about that. And then I've got another guy in the Med Center who wants to also extend until next year. It's just you got to make sure that the rent that you're paying is worth it in the Med Center. That's really all I can tell people. If you're paying too much in rent, the competition will ruin your margins. So it's like finding the sweet spot in rent, location, all of that stuff.
I'm glad you
Yep.
brought that up because everybody thinks that, oh, we're going to make money on short term rentals, whatever rent they get thrown at them. We're just talking about that before this, right? They're trying to charge me like extravagant numbers now to rent these places out because they know we're making money on top of it. But sometimes you just have to pass up on these deals because if the rent doesn't make sense with all your other added expenses and utilities and amenities you're doing, you're going to break either even or make very little money. That's not even worth the trouble of doing this. Everybody needs to make sure that they go out there and figure this out and have these numbers in order prior to actually going out and doing this because yeah, it's beautiful. It makes us a ton of money. You generate a ton of cash flow. But if you don't start at the right amount from the get go, you're setting yourself up for failure to where you're going to have to close these places down and sell your furniture at an extreme discount. So,
Yeah, but people don't really know how to run numbers. Like they don't run numbers the right way. It's like, that's what I've seen. I feel like they're running the numbers the incorrect way at a lot of the times. And like AirDNA gives you like it's a bucket. They just drop a price in a bucket. You can't just go based off of that. You know what I mean?
we talk about that all the time. AirDNA is the base price of what the lowest amount you can possibly make, and treat it as such.
Yeah.
Don't treat it as like, oh, if this says I'm going to make millions, it's not because it's wrong. It doesn't. It gives you an estimated number. So anyway, guys, we're running short on time. I want to transition here over to our questions that we ask everybody. And Norman, being that this is the big break show, man, we got to know what was your big break in life, business, whatever it was. What got you to the Norman from before to the Norman from today?
I'll say so. We were setting up 5 units in the Med Center, ironically, during COVID, and we were working with. We completely messed up the logistics portion of it. We thought that the designer was going to basically cover the logistics, but turns out they were only going to hire subcontractors to actually do the staging. And so what ended up happening was we had a logistical nightmare on our hands that we needed to figure out with the units. And what we ended up doing was we ended up shipping everything to one apartment. And we ended up shipping everything to one apartment, but then the designer also told us that her subs weren't going to move the boxes of furniture to all the units. So what ended up happening was I went there like there's an Instagram live of the video somewhere on the net, but I went there like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. I went there myself. I sorted out all the boxes. I labeled all the mail, and I ended up being there so late. I believe that like I ended up just sleeping on the air mattress, and like there wasn't even any like there weren't no sheets on it. Yeah, there were not air mattress, but the actual like memory foam mattress. There were no sheets on the mattress. And so what ended up happening was I called my homies for a favor. My homies came through. I was like I called all my closest homies. Five of them came. We got a U-Haul truck, and the very next day, like after I sorted everything, and this is how you know you have real friends. They helped me move all of this furniture into the U-Haul truck, put it into all of the units, and sort everything out. And mind you, I was still working at my day job at the time, and this is during COVID. And I can't go too in depth with what I was doing, but put it this way: like we were working on a PPP related project, a PPP related loan, which in hindsight made about like $2 billion in loans during the pandemic. And so like that project was going live, and I worked 17 hours that day on the project while simultaneously helping my friends move stuff around. So I worked 17 hours at the same time helping the homies move boxes around. And then finally the subcontractors came and set everything up, and it was a disaster because like, bro, we forgot to order stuff for 5 units worth of kitchens. I ended up going on Walmart and like doing Walmart pickup for like 5 units worth of kitchens. And what ended up happening to make matters worse was they were doing the supply shortage thing where you could only order X amount of stuff from Walmart. So I got a U-Haul truck. I went to 3 different Walmarts, got all that stuff, loaded it in the unit myself, and then I hired subcontractors to help me stage all the stuff from the U-Haul truck into 5 units worth of kitchens. Mind you, previous day I worked 17 hours. This day I think I ended up working like 13 because like we were fixing bugs and stuff like that. But once I got and mind you, I was working up until the point where the photographer was coming and like taking photos of units. So literally, like I'd be finishing setting up a unit, mounting a curtain or something like that. The photographer will come and take the photo. So it's literally like a race. It's literally like a race because I don't want to pay for her to come back. So like the big break was I managed to like finish all of that, and like despite all the mistakes we made, still get those units rented during a pandemic, driving all across Houston. And just, Houston is huge. So I'm going from the Walmart in the Heights all the way to the Walmart in Southwest Houston, all the way to the Walmart in Southeast Houston with the U-Haul truck, just hustling, getting it done. And I managed to do it. So that was my big break. And that's when I knew like, nah, I can do this.
That is awesome. I know Rafa's short on time right now. So one last thing before we head off in this segment. So one of the things we always bring up, learn and apply. Something real quick, Norman, that somebody could do from listening to this episode to like literally get out there and make something happen. What would that be?
I mean, if you want to take action, we literally told y'all how we get our leads and how like we cold call and like, some of the scripts we use to like, open up conversations with people. So if you wanted to get started, like you could literally listen to this podcast, go to the part where we like spoke about scripts and leads and all of that, like study that in depth, and then like go look up some like sales techniques, modify your script, and like you could close a unit off of this. And like we're telling you, and we also told you about like the research and stuff like that we do to make sure that the numbers work. We're not paying anything over market rent. Like, I mean, that's the blueprint right there.
I absolutely love that you brought that up because we give the info away for free all the time. And then I get these messages all the time saying, hey, can you help me get started? And I'm like, have you heard any of our episodes?
Have you listened to episode 1 through 60?
Yeah, like, and it's all on there for free. Take notes, write it down, and go and apply it. All right, man. I hate to cut us short because I got to jump on this call. But Norman, I appreciate you coming on the show, dude. Really means a lot.
Yeah,
I know
thanks,
you've been
bro.
at it for a long time. You do a lot of good content, and your content's getting better, by the way. I love the content you got coming out on Instagram too. It's really good. So
yeah, man, I've got people sending me death threats. So because I'm triggering Gen Z, man, but it's on purpose to extend my reach.
Yeah,
on
Awesome, man.
purpose.
Tell everybody what your Instagram is so that they can get a hold of you.
It's Norman Hamilton B&B.
Perfect. There it is, folks. You heard it all. Norman making shit happen.
Thank you.
Awesome, bro. We appreciate you,
thanks
man.
for coming on, man.
Thank you, guys.